When I was first getting into board games, I was introduced to Tokaido, a pleasant game about taking a stroll along the famed Tokaido Road, stopping along the way to paint landscapes, donate to shrines, shop for souvenirs, and eat delicious food. It enamored me with its great aesthetic, and how easy it was to get into for new players, along with its pleasant zen-like experience, made it one of the first games to add to my collection. It probably didn't hurt that the very next month I would be taking my first trip to Japan as well. But years have passed since that, and I and the hobby itself have grown, and one question still remains. Is it still the best at what it does? Minasan konnichiwa, and welcome to the Board Game Dojo, where today we are going to start our new series called Board Game Taisen, or Board Game Battles, where we take two games that you might be looking at buying for a similar purpose and try to settle which one is worth your hard-earned money. Today we have Tokaido versus Jugame Studios' Kamakura Collection. Which is the better Japanese aesthetic gateway game? Hajime! Before we crack into this challenger, let's talk a little bit about the current lightweight belt holder. Tokaido is a rare game that has kept selling well since its release in 2012. For the time, it offered one of the most gorgeous aesthetics in all of gaming, and still today, the art holds up as something inspiring. The premise of the game is simple. You'll go down the road, getting points along the way for doing things like collecting different kinds of souvenirs, meeting people, donating money to the shrines, and completing paintings. Everyone has a different character with a different special ability that'll point them towards doing some things more than others, like one person who meets two people at a time, or another that can donate one coin for free to the church. On your turn, you can go down the path as far as you want in between the food stops. As you go down the road, you'll notice that the spots can't hold everyone. Depending on the number of players, you might not be able to go to certain spots if someone is already there, meaning that you need to get there fast. The turn order is a bit different in this game. The turn order is decided based on the order down the road you are. The furthest person behind is the next person. So that means by going down the road further, you may get what you want, but then you might not have a turn for a while as everybody catches up. It was quite revolutionary at the time, but has since been repeated by games like Parks, High Rise, and Patchwork. But the game is still adored, and I think a lot of it has to do with the lovely artwork. The reserved yet colorful palette with lovely art by Xavier Dolan matches the overall zen-like feel that the mechanics evoke. Playing this game is like going for a nice stroll. Calming, relaxing, pleasant. You're going to hear me say that word a lot today. But over the years, people have been looking for a bit more decision-making, but a similarly nice aesthetic that isn't too complicated for new players to get into. Something that makes you say, I want to play that again, not just, that was nice. Let's see if Kamakura Collection can be that game. Kamakura Collection is a 2018 Japan-only release by Jugame Studio, a publisher known for very modern graphic design with a clean, colorful design palette. I'm not going to go over each individual rule here, because A, there's a good English manual included in the box, but B, there's also a really good rules explanation video by Gaijin Gamer that I'll link to right here. But I will go over a brief overview today, just so you know what I'm talking about when we go to the comparison part of the video. In Kamakura Collection, you'll be looking to amass the most points by visiting landmarks, collecting food tokens, and completing objectives in the city of, you guessed it, Kamakura. Kamakura is a real city just south of Tokyo that used to be the capital of Japan, and it's now known for its giant Buddha, its great shrines, and its numerous festivals throughout the year. There are 3 boards of note here. The main board, which acts as the map, the personal player board, and this rondel board that will be how you decide your action. Let's start with the game board, which is made up of players' 2 meeples, and then 2 kinds of chips. The big ones are the sight coins, and the small ones are the eat-around coins. When you collect either one of these, you put them on your personal player board. The more you collect, the more points you get. You also get bonus points if you collect the same color of sight coin on both sides of these lines here, or if you get at least 5 eat-around coins. But how do you collect these? Using this rondel system. These spaces here allow you to move one of your meeples. These spots allow you to take the sight coin, this one gives you a point, and this one gives you a taxi card. These taxi cards will allow you to directly go somewhere on the board depending on what location is on the card. The thing about the rondel system is that if someone else's cat is there, you can't go there, meaning that you might need to alter your plans or you can block someone else. You may also get points by specifically fulfilling objectives that are drawn at the beginning of the game, called exclusive tours, which might be collecting certain spots, a bunch of one color, or having both meeples together at the end of the game. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. So now that you have a basic overview of both of these games, let's compare the two. In this series, we are going to compare games based on different criteria based on what people are looking for when they're purchasing this game. Since these games are both going to be games that you're looking for that are easy to grasp and have a nice Japanese aesthetic to them, we are going to be looking at 5 categories: theme, art and components, ease of learning and ease of teaching, the overall experience while playing, and finally, the replayability. Do you want to have that overall experience again? Let's first start with the theme, because I think that it's an important part of why people would choose to buy one of these 2 games. Both of these games are, generally speaking, about traveling around Japan, but Tokaido goes about this in a very general way, while Kamakura Collection goes about this in a very specific way. Let's start with Tokaido. Tokaido tries to make its theme known by the things you are doing. You donate a coin here, you shop here, you go to a hot spring there, and each of these require you to do something a little bit different. It doesn't say the names of the shrines that you're going to or anything, because it's going for a more general Japanese aesthetic. It could be anywhere. It could be Tokaido, but it could also be Niigata. It could be outside of Tokyo. It could be near to Fuji. There are hot springs, shrines everywhere in Japan. It's a double-edged sword in a way. On the good side, it can be anywhere in Japan, so therefore it's more accessible to a more general audience, who might not know more specific things about Japan, other than, yeah, they do have hot springs. I think there are monkeys in one of those, right? So, it's nice. But on the other side, I actually find this to be a bit of a missed opportunity because it is such a set path. It is such a historic part of Japan that's been around for centuries that it would have been kind of cool to have seen them include the names of shrines, even if it was just on a card or, your paintings that you're completing are the name of something specific. But I guess they went about it, and I think they did a good job on doing a general, accessible Japanese aesthetic. Kamakura Collection, on the other hand, is very specifically about Kamakura. If you haven't been to Kamakura, a lot of these are not going to be that important to you. And in fact, it makes the game actually feel a bit more like a souvenir at times than a game, because the ones who are going to love the theme of this game are the people who have been to Kamakura. They have been to that train station and they have been to that hiking trail that is there. It's a way of they can bring it to the table when they're with their friends and reminisce and tell stories of their adventures in Japan. So for 95% of people, I think they are going to be more interested in the theme of Tokaido when you say, hey, let's play a game about Japan, than if you bring out a game about Kamakura. As exciting as Kamakura is, and I've visited many times, there are not that many people who are outside of Japan who are going to be that excited about it. But on that note, if you ever come to Japan, you've got to visit. They have fantastic hiking trails, and the shrines there are gorgeously upkept. Point, Tokaido. The next one is pretty related, art and components. Let's start with components, because I think it's a bit of an unfair comparison because of the price difference. Tokaido is nearly double the price, and you can tell most from components. Kamakura Collection's board warped on me pretty quick, and although it doesn't affect the gameplay, it is slightly annoying. It's pretty bare bones, with some cards, some cardboard player boards, and game boards, and cardboard coins. Not gonna win for best components or anything, but for $20 and a game that gets all of this into a tiny package, I'm okay with it. I'm not gonna complain too much. Tokaido has a higher price tag, but also a lot more stuff. A bigger board, a lot more cards that are good quality, and cardboard coins. Of course, you could go deluxe, but that's even making it more of an unfair thing. But know that Tokaido does have a deluxe version that has metal coins and some minis. The art is an interesting comparison because I think it draws an interesting line between fun and authentic. This seems like a good time to remind you, and I need to do a better job of this, that I am in fact the only white contributor to the Board Game Dojo. We have other contributors that are from Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and they contribute a lot to the opinions on these games. And we each write a different section of the reviews. But I remind you that because my wife, who is Japanese, was in charge of this art comparison between the 2 games, and she made such an interesting observation. She said Kamakura Collection, you can tell, is a Japanese game designed by Japanese designers, by a Japanese publisher, made for Japanese people. The color scheme, the graphic design, the way that the people are drawn, everything feels like it was authentic by people who have been to or are from Kamakura. Whereas Tokaido feels like it was definitely made by someone who loves Japan, but definitely not Japanese themselves, and it was made for people who aren't Japanese. The slanted eyes, the color palette, everything looks like what one would think Japan looks like, and what Japanese people look like based on stereotypes. I was curious what other Japanese reviewers said about it as well, and surprisingly it's only become widely available in the last couple of years in Japan itself. Kind of like when Taco Bell decided to go into Mexico, I guess? I don't know. And quite unsurprisingly, others tended to agree with what she said. The artwork being beautiful, but very clearly by somebody who isn't Japanese. Assuredly someone who loves Japan for sure. The art is done wonderfully, and they've worked on other Japanese-themed games that have brought attention to Japan and aspects of Japanese culture, but very much not done in the Japanese aesthetic. So this again kind of depends on what you're looking for in the art. Component-wise is not really a fair comparison because of the cost, but we prefer the art of Kamakura Collection. There's just something about the artistic detail that they put into each individual coin that represents what that monument or food looks like for real. How easy it is to read everything on the board from whichever angle you're sitting at around the table, the beautiful color scheme, and the graphic design that honestly makes you feel why people are so attracted to go to Kamakura for the different seasons of the year. Tokaido's art is lovely and components way better quality, and you can't go wrong with either though. But this point is going to go to Kamakura Collection. Next, let's move on to Ease of Play and Ease of Learning. Both of these games offer a simple rule set for both non-gamers and gamers alike. Tokaido uses a very familiar go from point A to point B structure while getting rid of dice and just saying, hey, move as far as you want. But no, then it might be a while for your turn. It's so easy to teach and people pick up on it quickly. Kamakura is also pretty straightforward to teach. Half of the choices are move, and the other choices are take a coin, take a taxi card, or get a point. That's mostly it. Both offer objectives, and Tokaido offers special powers that also help point people in a certain direction. It's easy to explain to someone, hey, your person has the special power that they can buy stuff for cheaper, so you should try going to the souvenir shops maybe. Or in Kamakura Collection, hey, our objective is to be the first to collect all of the Kita Kamakura landmarks, which is North Kamakura landmarks. So maybe start going in that direction. It helps especially with new gamers when they first look at the board and they can feel overwhelmed, and you can go, hey, that is a good first strategy, so try this out, and you can adjust on the fly from there. Both offer a similar worker placement-esque kind of mechanic in which, depending on the player count, other players can't go to that spot. Tokaido has it on the board. If someone else is there, that might mean you don't get the coins that you need to buy food or the souvenirs or go to the spot you need to finish your painting. Whereas Kamakura Collection, it is just more of a delay of your turn. You might have needed to move to the pink coin this turn, but someone else is there, so instead you need to move your other worker to somewhere else this turn. And then maybe you can move to the pink coin on your next one. Neither of these are necessarily difficult, and take less than 5 minutes probably to explain altogether. I think the overall premise of just move is easier in Tokaido. It's one step, just move somewhere. But in Kamakura Collection, it can take a little bit longer for new players to get used to, okay, first you need to move to the spot, so that's one spot on the rondel, and then the next turn, on a separate turn, you need to pick up the thing. Oh, and there are 2 meeples that you need to get to plan around. I think a new player just has a better chance of enjoying themselves quicker in Tokaido. It's just a lot easier to do better from the very first game than it is in Kamakura Collection, where there's a lot more timing aspects of it. So the point for ease of learning goes to Tokaido. Next up is the overall experience while playing the game. Along with the ease of play and the aesthetic, both of these games offer a peaceful, relaxing experience for players. These games probably aren't going to cause any rage quitting, and throughout the game there's so much beautiful artwork to look at. Kamakura feels a bit like you are truly a tourist, needing to get a taxi, figure out the best route from the station to that Buddha statue you saw in the travel brochure, and hopefully not running into too much traffic. The rondel system actually perfectly simulates this traffic, everyone trying to get to the same places at the same time, and then you just keep running into each other over and over again. Tokaido is a much more zen-like experience, like a peaceful stroll through Japan. Besides, if people take your spot, a lot of the time you're kind of doing your own thing, slowly progressing up the board and doing the activities your character is good at. It feels much more like you are taking in the sights and much less like you are playing the game. And actually, that's a pretty good summary of the experience between the two. Kamakura Collection feels more gamery. It feels more gamey. I don't really know how to say that. But the decisions feel a bit more serious. Having to keep track of your 2 different people feels a bit harder, and it's harder trying to figure out the timing in order to not have a lost turn. And yet the turns are snappy, and it never feels like the game takes longer than it needs to. Tokaido feels more like a point salad, so inoffensive that it can be both simultaneously pleasant, but also really boring. Most of the time, you have enough time to do what you want, aside from any unlucky draws, which is much more beginner-friendly, but a lot less mentally stimulating. Point here goes to Kamakura Collection. So now it is 2-2, and this is completely coincidental. We just wrote it out in the script, like, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this. So it just came down to, okay, replayability's last, and so if you don't like the tiebreaker, this one is what I was in charge of, so you can just blame me. Replayability is a bit of a hard thing to pin down, but I went with variability plus how often you actually want to come back to playing the game. Both games offer some kind of variability in their setup. Kamakura approaches variability in the different objective cards each game, while keeping the locations the same. The B token goes on the B spot, and to put down the G token, you need to find the G spot. There are no player powers or variable starting positions. Tokaido approaches variability very differently. The bonus objectives are the same, the map locations are the same, but the player powers are what give it its variability. Add in the expansions that add new mechanics and characters, and you have many differences in how you play. Which leads us to the final big question. Do you want to play these games over and over again? This is it. This is the final hurdle, right? Kamakura Collection, while being very interesting, feels like the same game every game. Yes, the objectives add some spice, but ultimately you feel like you're doing much the same thing. Okay, this game I want to go to the North Kamakura thing, so that's A, B, and C. The next game I want to go to the South Kamakura, which is D, E, F. And you're doing the same process to get those coins, which makes it easier to learn the game, but it also doesn't really give a whole lot of variance or make me want to play it many times. I've played it about 5 times, and I think I've seen all that there is to do. There is a little bit of skill growth, especially in the timing, but it still feels like the same game I played the first and second time, as I did the third and fourth, and definitely the fifth. And it is absolutely awful at 2 players. Tokaido, with the expansions or without, at least gives you a bit more of a reason to come back. The board remains the same, but the player powers point you in certain directions. And because you can't be good at everything in the game, you will have to specialize based on that character. Oh, this character has less money, so early in the game I need to get some coins so I can do some other stuff. Oh, this character is good at painting, so I want to get going on the painting so that I can get the completion bonuses before everybody else does. Add in the expansions that add more content, and you're going to have it on your shelf for a longer period of time, at least to try everything that there is to offer. So, advantage, Tokaido. So there you have it with a final score of 3-2, Tokaido barely inks out the win. And I have to say, honestly, I'm kind of surprised. I came in this video thinking Kamakura would beat it out, and for a newer channel, I was kind of hoping that the video would, create buzz and get us new views as something new and exciting to replace a classic. But that's not the case, and maybe that's an important lesson in and of itself. Tokaido came out in what we call the golden age of board gaming, and continues to do well even though there's a lot of competition because it's the best at what it does, offering a light experience that offers a gorgeous Japanese theme. And Kamakura Collection isn't bad. I would still recommend it if you go to Kamakura and bring this back as a souvenir. Like I said earlier in the video, it would be a great way to talk to your friends about your trip. But I think you'd just be fine picking up Tokaido instead if you're just looking for a game that has a Japanese aesthetic. Plus it's a lot easier to get as Kamakura Collection is only sold in Japan. Thanks so much for watching our first board game battles video. Let us know in the comments if there are other games that you want to hear us cover and have battle it out. And hey, check out our podcast if you want some more awesome board game content. We've done episodes on Slay the Spire, FOMO, fantasy football, and history of board games, so check it out if you're interested. Thanks again. じゃあね